I believe this Lectric XPeak is going to be the #1 26 by 4-inch fat tire bike for 2024. Why? We'll find out in the video. Let's get started. The Lectric e-bike company has committed itself to make sure that they're as green as possible. So one thing I noticed is this box was really easy to open because it had a flip down front, which is something kind of new for me. Next, I noticed there was no styrofoam anywhere in this packaging to protect the bike. It was all protected by paper and cardboard, and they used cotton string to tie everything on for the protection. I did check to make sure that there was tire sealant already in the tire, and there was. They actually pre-install slime tire sealant in the tires to make sure that you don't get flats. Next, I just put on the fender. This is the only part that really I needed a tool. Then I just was able to go ahead and use the through axle screw-on to put on the front rim. It did help that I had the bike rack to hold the bike up while doing this. Next, I unwrapped all the rest of the wrapping that was on the bike itself, then made sure that I had my adjustments made for my brake handles, checked the battery, checked the electricals, and after that, I was pretty much ready to ride. Okay, for a lot of you who have actually been following me throughout the few years that I've been doing reviews on e-bikes, you know that I'm already a big fan of the Lectric models of any of their bikes that they've come out with. And this XPeak, I have to say, has hit the top #1 level of my all-time favorite bikes that I've ever ridden. And one of the reasons being is because of the value. If it wasn't a super expensive bike, I would say yes, it would still be a really great bike to actually invest in or get a chance to ride. But at $1,300, I don't know how a lot of the competition is going to be able to compete with everything that comes with this. Now, the step-through model, I do need to make a, disclaimer about something I've noticed with the bike, and it's something called squirreliness or the wobble. A lot of times I've had that wobble with many different models that are in a step-through frame style like this. I think why that happens is because as a higher performance type bike, the weight of this bike is so light for a fat tire bike and the size of it, that when something is on the back here and it actually has a little shake or a little move. Now, without a maybe center support of a step over model that has this crossbar here, it kind of makes the frame flex a little. Now, I was lucky enough to be part of the initial testing of this in Arizona at the media launch for the XPeak bikes, and I rode one of these specifically trying to feel if there was going to be a wobble, and I didn't have anything on a rack on the back, and we were going off-roading and I didn't feel it. And I asked about how they eliminate that, and they said that this extra support does add to keeping the frame stronger, but I don't know if it's a possibility as much to get the wobble out with weight on the bike itself. I haven't felt any wobble until I added my Rock Bros rear rack bag. And once I put that on, I felt the wobble, and I wasn't surprised, honestly, because I have felt that wobble a lot with many different step-through, larger size bikes that have a lot of weight distribution on the back. And again, it's because I believe it is because of the height of the bike. When you have something elevated on the rear rack, it actually does help cause that problem to happen. It's kind of like if you have a pickup truck. If any of you have ever loaded a ton of weight on the back of a pickup truck, it almost feels as though the front tires are not as stiff or stable. They almost have like a loose feel to it, kind of like the wobble. And it kind of has, it makes the bike distribute the weight differently. And that's just my theory. I don't know. For those of you who would disagree with me or have other theories to that, please, by all means, put in comments below, because I'm learning about all this stuff as we go. I just do know larger bikes like this, step-through models, you put weight on the back, you get a wobble. That's a very consistent thing. And even I've had that wobble with some larger fat tire bikes that actually have had weight on the back that even are stepovers that have that. Just want to go ahead and point that out. That's something right off the bat. If you are thinking about getting one of these step-through models, you might experience that if you do put a lot of weight. I think some of the better ways to alleviate that is also to put a pannier bag style so that the weight is lower to the bike and you may not feel it as much. I need to go ahead and test that out for sure, but for this review itself, I'm riding it without anything on it, and this bike is absolutely fantastic. I still claim it to be probably the #1 bike of 2024 out there, whether it's going to be this step-through model or the step-over model. The performance of this bike is absolutely fantastic, and we're going to go over each and every part and the specs of this right now. So one of the really big things I want to start with that makes this bike so amazing is the 750 watt motor that's in the back here that also puts out up to 1300 watts of power, and that's probably if I have it actually in PS level 5. So we also have 5 PS levels, which actually do put out different levels of wattage per level of PS. And what it does is it actually does act sort of like a torque sensor, so you do get a feel as though it is pushing more power only whenever you're pedaling the bike itself. So you could actually, in theory, go a lot faster at lower levels of PAS without putting as much effort into it and making the bike more efficient. You will see on the website on the Lectric ratings of how much mileage you get from this. This motor will get you almost up to 50 miles on PS level 1, and it's only a 14 amp hour battery, which is kind of amazing for a bike that's this size. But one of the other reasons why you can possibly get that kind of range on it is not only because of the efficiency of what they have that is controlling the amount of power that's coming out for the speed of the bike or the amount of effort that's being put in by you and the bike itself together, is that it is also really light. For a bike this size, it's under 70 pounds. So it's about 67 pounds of what it's rated on the website. And with that weight, most of the bikes that I've had that were this size ran closer to 80 pounds minimum. Some of them were even more heavy because of the extra weight of the battery, the larger frame sizing. But this bike was, the attempt here was to design a bike that could actually be a strong off-road bike for riders that really want to have more versatility for the outdoors adventures, I guess is how I would describe it. So who would this bike really be for? First of all, I would think it would be almost for anybody who's willing to go ahead and buy or ride a 26-inch fat tire bike. Something this big, a lot of times there's going to be a lot of riders that are too intimidated by the full size of this. Now, the one thing I really like about this particular frame design that came out with the XPeak is that this distance from the front to the seat is closer than a lot of the other 26-inch fat tire bikes, because the frame size is actually thinner, which then causes you to not have to reach so far to get to the handlebars, which gives it a little less of an aggressive stance when you're riding. It also does help that if you're going to be riding this bike for a lot of long-range cruising, you won't have to sit so far leaning forward that it's actually less fatigue on the ride itself. So that's two of the other features about the frame design that I really like about it, other than it being a step through and that it's actually closer here, that it also makes the bike a little lighter. Now, one thing I want to have you notice is that this center tube is just a decent size, integrated size for the battery to be able to fit nicely inside the frame right here. So it looks like it's just kind of part of the frame itself. It's really, really nice in how they did that. It's a 14 amp hour battery, 48 volt. So it does hold a decent amount of charge on there. It's not as big as maybe a lot of 20 amp hour batteries that are being made today in a lot of bikes this size. So I'm gonna go ahead and show how easy it is to take out the battery and actually put it back in. There, standard keyhole here, you just take the key, stick it in, and once you turn it, the battery will pop maybe about 3 millimeters away from the bike. There is a button on the bottom here. By pushing the button, it releases the battery, comes right out. Now, it is only a 14 amp hour battery, so it's not exceptionally heavy. It has a good weight, for the size that it does. And when you're done, after charging it, you can actually charge it on the bike itself, or you can take it out and charge it in the house if you want to. There's a battery indicator at the top right here. And when you push this, now you see that it's green. So it tells you what level it is based on the color that comes out here. Once that's charged up and ready to go, you can stick it in the bike just by sticking the bottom once it grabs, and then you just squeeze the battery together, it pops right in there. The port for charging is still accessible, so you can actually leave it on the bike and just plug in your charger as well. You do not have to take the battery out to go ahead and charge up the battery. But that's how simple it is. It doesn't get any easier than that. They are trying to keep the weight down. It is trying to be a little more high performance. And with this specialized cadence sensor that they have built into this with the way that it's tuned, that works a little more like a torque, not exactly, but a little more like a torque sensor, then you will have the efficiency of and the kind of the feel of a torque sensor without having all that extra expense. So the one biggest reason I'm going to say I think why this bike will potentially be one of the top bikes for 2024 is because of its price. For everything that you get here, it's a $1,300 bike that rides something closer to almost a $2,500 bikes that I've tried in the past that did not quite have as much of a smooth ride as this does, plus the performance that this had. And they were maybe potentially a little lighter, but they were also a little larger, and they were different components which made it a lot more expensive. But the performance that you feel with this and how smooth it is, it's quite amazing. The other thing about this motor here is it's not as loud as some of the other 750s. In fact, it's not as loud as any of the other 750s I've ever ridden yet. It is almost whisper quiet. It's kind of weird now that I think about it, that you don't hear anything from the motor usually when I'm riding. There's so much road noise coming from the tires because they're just fat tires, which is not even now that loud really. There's been a lot louder tires that I've had, but all in all, this motor is so quiet, and they do actually state it's 400% quieter. This rack is rated, I'm going to start from the back of the bike. It's rated at 60 pounds that you can see here. This is a Renity RS suspension fork, and that in itself would normally bring up the price quite a bit. Whatever Lectric did to work out the deals to get this put on here, they were able to get this bike certified as a EMTB certification, which means that it's been rigorously tested to be able to withstand the roughness of mountain bikes. So that's one thing that it can be used for, and it feels like it can because of the power that you get. You see some off-roading that we've done. Now, we had a lot of rain, so unfortunately I was not able to go ahead and take this to the trails that I really want to go back, which I will definitely be doing not too long from now. Once that passes, we're going to be taking this bike out when it gets a little dry out there to really get some off-roading into this and really take this out for a lot of fun riding. We do have a 11 to 28 tooth cog in the back here that actually helps with, even at 28 miles an hour, I could still put a lot of help into the bike because of the 11 tooth small tooth that's in the back here. Plus the front chainring size is actually another reason why this gearing ratio is made for a lot longer efficiency. It does tie in well with a 24 amp controller. Everything put together here, you do just get a lot of power. Even though we have this cadence sensor and everything on there, the throttle itself, putting in the power to the back of the motor, you get a really strong push from the bike. Now, and it's not a jerky push as well, which is I really like to mention that they've done a really good job from the first Lectric 1.0 models that came out where the bike just jerked when you hit the throttle. It's still a powerful startup, but it's not a strong jerk. It comes with a fender that's on the back side here. The other thing I want to mention, it does have an integrated rear light, and it's not a brake light. As you can see right now, the light is not on, so it's not something that stays on. And then what we're going to do is just hold the plus button on the top, and then you'll notice that the headlight symbol is here. And even here in the bright 11 o'clock time of day, you'll see that the rear light is quite bright. If I hit the brake, which I'm going to be grabbing right now, and when I do hit the brake, it doesn't do anything. I'm actually hitting it right now, so it doesn't make any difference to it. So it's not necessarily a brake light, it is just a rear light for visibility, which is completely fine because the most important thing is that you're actually being seen when you're riding at night or later in the evenings. Here we have the front headlight, and you can see it's a really nice size, big headlight. I'm not too keen with the wires being in front here. I don't know if there's a way to go ahead and push this elsewhere so that it can be put aside. I would not actually typically ride with a front rack anyway. I'm not a big fan of front racks on any e-bikes that I ride. It does add a weird balancing to any bike that I'm riding with, so I don't usually put one on. It does also add to some of the wobbliness from what I've seen or heard with the front rack on there, but those accessories are available. It does have this really cool, this is a rubber chain guard. I don't know if you can see the texture on it, but it is rubber stuck on really well, so that will protect your frame from getting scratches of a chain hitting it through off-road riding. We also have a tourney derailleur in the back here, and with this tourney it's just really smooth. I mean, you have your 7 gears in the back, and you have a Shimano SIS shifter here with this index shifter and going up and down very quick to push things. You also have your throttle, thumb throttle here. This is locking grips, so these do not spin, which is something that actually should be with every off-road bike no matter what. We also have hydraulic brakes, so we're going to take a look at this side. We have our hydraulic brakes here. I'm not familiar with this R180, and they work fantastic. I mean, there's no issues with this. If I pull the brakes really hard, I'll definitely come to skid and to a stop very, very quickly. This also looks like 180 millimeter rotors. It probably actually needs to have when you're talking about a bike this big going 28 miles an hour. So it is a class 2 bike when it ships out, and you can change the adjustment very easily in the settings to go ahead and make it to an unlocked of a class 3 bike. When you're using throttle alone in a class 3 level, the throttle will only take you up to 20 miles an hour. That's what a class 3 is legally supposed to stop at. Now, if you want to go above the 20 miles an hour, then you can just start pedaling and the cadence sensor will kick in, and it does allow you to then go past the 20 miles an hour up to 28 before it actually starts to cut out the speed of class 3 level. Okay, as we're moving a little closer to the front here, I'm going to show, first of all, this is not the seat and the post that comes with this bike. I did decide that I'm going to be riding this bike a lot more and probably further than a lot of the other rides. And the seat that came with the Lectric is typical of the seats that come with all of their newer electric models. It's a standard electric seat. It's a little wide saddle, but it's a little harder. But I decided I wanted to put something a little softer because I was going to take this out a little further. And this is a Bikeroo seat. It's a really comfortable, cushiony seat that's on there. I did put a Zoom suspension seat post in here as well. So this does have some extra compression that's on this. So this does not come with it. It is a great addition to the bike. We do sell this actually on the ebikeproducts.com website, and it does fit inside of the 31.8 millimeter post. The 31.6 millimeter zoom posts go right into it. You just need to tighten this up and it fits perfectly. You can check that out at the ebikeproducts.com/shop website on the page there. The Bikeroo seat, and it does add to a little more comfort for cruising style riding, and it doesn't actually hinder any of the off-road performance in my opinion. So looking at the front crankset here, we have a 46 tooth double chain guard here. You really want to make sure that this is just useful so that your pant leg doesn't get stuck into it or your chain to pop off. When you move a little forward onto this crankset, what's actually really cool is what they installed here. These electric pedals that are quick release. This to me should be standard on almost every e-bike moving forward if ever possible, because one, this allows you to put the bike in places where the pedal won't scratch, especially going by cars, but it also is a great security feature. To be honest, one of these things that's really good about having just quick releases, if you are actually leaving your bike somewhere where potentially it's going to be a higher theft item, removing the pedals is one extra deterrent from someone taking your bike, because one, they can't pedal away with it. They're going to have to walk it or carry it away. Take out the seat, put on a lock on it. It's not going to stop somebody from stealing your bike if they really want to, but if you can't pedal and you can't sit, you're going to have to walk. As we move forward, again, the Renity RS Fork, there is 80 millimeters worth of travel. Of course, it does adjust, you know, where you can lock it out at certain levels if you want, if it's too soft or it goes too far. And of course, your preload adjustments can also tighten it up a little if you want to. You know, just flip this up, turn it, you can either tighten it or turning it, and that'll make it tighten up on the bike. The front fender, now I've heard some people say that they didn't come with their front fender. I almost missed the fender on the unboxing. It is in the box in a piece that looks like it's just spacer, and it's so light that it could be an easy thing for people to throw out. So if you also get one of these bikes and you don't see the fender attached to the bike because it won't come attached with it, be sure you look at every single piece of cardboard that's in that, because this came wrapped in a piece of cardboard that was a little deceiving, and I didn't realize that the fender was in it, especially even when I moved it. It's so light that it didn't. So you just have to assemble that on there. So if we take a look at this side of the fork here and we move our way down, first of all, what you'll notice is you do also have your hydraulic brakes here. The other thing I want to show you is that there is a kind of a quick release, but this is a through axle fork. So you don't really need a lot of tools to get riding right away. The only thing you might need is an Allen wrench for the fender if you want to add that on. But if you don't add that on, you really don't need a lot of tools, if any. And so what this part is it is a through axle that screws in and tightens up, and that is one of the things that actually makes it a lot more secure than some of the quick releases that can pop in and out, because you need to feed it through the fork all the way through. And you know, I've also heard some people say they had a lot of problems putting it together. I use a bike rack to hold up the bike when I'm putting it together, and that alleviates me from having a second set of hands to do it. I can see that being troublesome for anybody trying to do it by themselves without a rack. So if you are going to put this bike together, have a little time set aside and basically either have somebody be able to help you hold it up while you're sticking it in, putting it together, because that is going to be a big frustration if you're not really familiar with putting this part together while you're holding it up, because it won't just sit in there while you're doing it like some other bikes. We do have a lot of great cable management going through the frame here, and it goes all the way through and under. And as we're looking at the cables that come under this side to the motor, these are all strapped in pretty nice and clean. I don't have any complaints with that either. The other part, I guess we're going to go over now. Let's go over the dashboard, and we're going to go from the left to the right side of it here. As we're looking at the brakes, of course, I did say that this is hydraulic brakes. I put a cell phone holder on top here. This is something that is not absolutely necessary. I like to have it on here so that I can actually do my GPS, my mapping, and also verify my speed as I'm going if this is accurate. Never had a problem with the handlebar width or the accessory space that I have. I did add on the Ebike products water bottle holder as well, so we have both these products sold on as accessories at the ebikeproducts.com/shop website. You can pick these up to add this on if you want, and this is a great accessory combo kit. If you pick up the post and these accessories all together, really makes the bike kind of complete in my opinion, because your cell phone's held and your water bottle is being held. Now it does come with water bottle cage bosses, so you can put accessories, which a lot of e-bikes don't have, which I'm really glad that they have that. The only problem is if you put a water bottle here, it no longer is necessarily a step-through. Looking here on the left side, you can see that we have our basic, this is used on a lot of the different electric models. And this is your on button here. So I'm going to hold that down. And you can see, very basic but clear display. They've not changed this display for so many different models since they've come out with them, and it's because it works great. I mean, there's not really a lot that you kind of need to go ahead and have other than what you have here. It shows your speed, your PS levels, as you go through how much voltage you have, the current that you're putting out, so you can kind of track that as well, and the time of your ride. And then of course, if you hold down the plus and minus together, then you can go into your menu settings, and here through your menu settings you can actually go through each one of the menus, and at P8 you can change this to 100%. 32 is your class 2 level, and then 100% is your class 3, and then by hitting the plus button all the way through and coming back out of the menu, then you can just kind of set everything you need can be set through that super simple interface. You just need to use your manual to make sure you know what settings you're in when you're making different changes. But this setup here doesn't need to be anymore, and this is one way they keep the cost down. Now a lot of companies may be saying, they have better displays, a lot of other details, but really when it comes down to it, what makes a bike is the ride. This is going to be a $1,300 ride. The value that you get off of this bike is quite amazing. It's the design, it's the components, it's the features, it's the weight of the bike. Me being 5'5" with my arm length is very comfortable. But I can probably see maybe some taller riders with longer arms saying that it's a little bit too short. But that also depends, because some taller riders who like to be riding straight up will actually like or appreciate that this is actually closer the way that it is here. This step over height is actually quite low, so that it does have the ability to allow accessibility to a lot of different riders. Everything else here, this is the Lectric XPeak. Fantastic bike. I don't know how much more I can state of why I think this is going to be one of the best bikes at $1,300, 750 watts, 1300 peak, 24 amp controller, their new Cadence sensors that actually work almost like a torque, but the price point, that is just unbelievable for what you get. The ride is super smooth, very soft, and add a little bit of accessories for some extra comfort, $30 for the post, maybe another $25 for the seat. Make the bike yours, and you'll be loving this bike for a long time. This has immediately jumped to the top of the list of one of my top bikes of all time that I do enjoy, especially for the larger size bikes. So if you're interested in taking a look at the Lectric XPeak, you can go to ebikeproducts.com/XPeak, and that'll take you directly to the XPeak product pages on the lectricebike.com website. You can take a look at all the specs and go into detail more about what this bike comes with, and still why I think this is going to be 2024's best fat tire bike. It is again made for performance, for off-road. You will absolutely find this bike to be a blast. It has such a great feel to it. I really do believe this is a bike that's going to be a standard to try to beat. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video.